This is Forward Progress here on the Hammer Betting Network. We are recapping day one in NFL free agency. Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, Fabian Sommer, professional sports bettor. And we're going to get right into it, guys. Everyone watching, we're going through three things today. We're going to talk about the most underrated or impactful signing so far, the most overrated signing, and then stay tuned right to the very end of the video. We're each going to give our best futures bet available in the market right now. We'll talk about how day one of free agency has impacted our look at some of these teams going forwards. But Eric, let's start with you. Day one thoughts. Who do you think was the most underrated or impactful signing?
Yeah, I'm going to go with underrated, and I think that it'll end up being an impactful signing, but I really like the Vikings signing Marcus Davenport to basically a 1-year, $13 million deal. It's basically the money that they get. They get about $12 million when they cut Zadarius Smith, or trade him today. And with Davenport, I tweeted this out the other day. Davenport did have a dip in production. Like he had like a 14% pressure rate in 21 and just a 12.1%, which is still it's still okay in 2022. But he was involved in 3% sacks, per pass rush in 21. Last year was 0.3%, right? So anytime you look at the marketplace, you're like, what are they buying? There's statistics to suggest that these markets buy sacks. And so I think the Vikings are really getting, of course, they're buying the pressure rates and they're buying the thing that generates the sacks there. And it gives them an option. It reminds me a lot of when Tampa Bay signed Shaq Barrett back in 2019, where the sack production wasn't there, but the pressure production was overshadowed by guys like Cam Jordan and stuff like that. Then you give yourself an opportunity as you're trying to get younger. When they have cap space in 24, they can extend him, they can franchise tag him, they can do all these things. But it's a really good move by the Vikings, I think, getting younger at one of the more important positions in the NFL.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. The problem is that they seem to be stuck or mired to Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. So that, having him there long-term kind of offsets any gains that they're going to make in personnel around him.
Yeah, I think, though, this offseason, they're making moves that suggest that this is his last year. And obviously that's famous last words. We said that last year at times, and then they went ahead with the extension with void years and all that. But it does look like there's a path for them to get under the cap and at least field a roster without having to sort of spread his money out over multiple years. But I do agree with you. I mean, Cousins has a chance if Rodgers stays in the league this year. He'll be the second oldest quarterback in the NFL starting. So I think the Vikings will move on. I think they're going to be terrible this year. I think that they're designed to be terrible. But this is a move where you're thinking about this team has only 5 draft picks coming up. They need to start getting good players with good pedigree and premium positions. And this is a signing that is like sneakily underrated because this is one way to do that when you don't have a draft class that's 10 picks deep.
Suma, your thoughts on day one free agency and who you thought made a great bargain deal?
First of all, Greg Gabriel tweeted out that Marcus Davenport was getting $13 million for 0.5 sacks last season, which was probably a good sign that this was a great signing by the Vikings. My best value signing so far, I think it's David Long, 2 years, $11 million to the Dolphins, because Miami's going to switch from that heavy, aggressive, load the box, man coverage style of defense to like Big Fangio style of defense, to high light boxes. And what that scheme really needs is a linebacker that even while defending the pass first can quickly trigger defending the run downfield. And I think David Long, he had some injury issues in the past, but especially last year for the Titans, when he went out, the defense over the middle of the field basically collapsed, and he was a great player for them last year. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be an excellent signing for that Big Fangio defense. I also like Eric Kendricks through the Chargers quite a bit. It's not going to be like a huge upgrade because they are also likely to lose Drew Tranquil, but I think that Eric Kendricks is basically the guy that this defense desperately needs, especially when you consider that they would lose Drew Tranquil. What I also sneakily like is Cam Sutton to the Detroit Lions for 3 years, $30 million, something in that range. Cam Sutton has been a really, I would call it solid cornerback in Pittsburgh, and that's basically what this Lions defense needs. Just solid cornerback play, a guy that is not going to get toasted every time, and I think they also got him extremely cheap for the price tag.
Suma goes 3 for the price of 1 right there. 3 signings that he loves on day one. I'm going to go completely off the board here. So I included most underrated in this for a very specific reason. I love the Mike White signing as a backup quarterback for the Dolphins, because we look at what Miami suffered in the latter half of last season with Tua and the concussions, obviously, and them essentially falling off a cliff. They're doing a lot to address their defense. They bring in Vic Fangio. They make the trade for Jalen Ramsey, which I think is huge for that squad. They cannot go into games with this team and have Skylar Thompson playing meaningful games at any point. And Mike White is not the guy that's going to come in and win them a Super Bowl, but he's the type of guy that can come in and honestly compete in games, even against the Bills, against the Jets, possibly with Aaron Rodgers as well. So I think that was a very smart move. I thought he was one of the better backups that was available on the market. And I just have a soft spot in my heart for Mike White as well. So I think he's going to be really helpful if we see, Tua needs to rest at all next year or anything along those lines. I think having Mike White there is huge. All right, guys, let's get into the next one. And Suma, we'll start with you here on this one. Most overrated signing from day one in free agency.
Going with Tremaine Edmonds to Chicago. I thought when they signed TJ Edwards, I thought, okay, great signing. TJ Edwards, 3 years, 21 million or something like that. New Mike linebacker. They also got that undrafted linebacker who played really well for them last year, I think, Sanborn. So I thought, yes, Edwards, Sanborn, new linebacking, do very cheap deal for TJ Edwards. And then they also signed Tremaine Edmonds for like 50 million guaranteed. And I think that has to be one of the most overrated signings of yesterday. I really don't get why you would get rid of Roquan Smith, who was clearly a blue chip level linebacker. And then you go on into free agency and give up so much money for 2 linebackers on the first day. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'm going with Edmonds.
Yeah, Eric, that was a little bit disappointing for me because I went and I bet Bears futures immediately on the DJ Moore trade, which I thought would be great. All of the draft capital that they have now, plus all the money they had to spend. They had the lowest, I think the most cap space of any team in the league, going
$30 million bucks.
Yeah. Right. And I was like, okay, they can really improve this team. And now these moves will improve the team, but questionable whether that's where they should have been spending going into this free agency.
Yeah, there's a little bit of like styles make fights here, and I'm arguing against the Bears, but I'm sort of trying to give a reason why. So like using tracking data, we've discerned like what kinds of linebackers there are, and there are guys that bite on play action really hard, but also flow to the run. And then there are guys that kind of sit back against the run and then don't bite on play action. If you look at some of that data, Edmonds and Edwards are very much like Bobby Okereke and Darius Leonard, and I butchered both names in Indianapolis. Like if you look at their splits with the tracking data, they're exactly those 2 guys. And Roquan Smith was like the opposite, right? So like I had this thesis at the beginning of the year that like, look, Eberflus is not going to really like if you're going to spend 20 million on a linebacker, it's going to be the kind of guy that plays linebacker the way you want to. And this is to my so scheme matters, but to Suma's point, like you should build your scheme around blue chip players and not overspend for guys that fit your scheme. And I think that that's what the Bears kind of did here, which is unfortunate. I actually have one, and this is my favorite team that signed this player. My almost overrated signing of the day was Jawan Taylor. There's a number of reasons why, and look, I think offensive line, like my former colleague at PFF, Timo Riske, did a great job of showing offensive linemen with great athleticism, they age well, right? And it's one of those positions where the first couple of years you're basically writing off because they suck, and it's an athletic tackle versus defensive end is the biggest athletic mismatch on the field, and so it's an age. It's really tough. But Jawan Taylor led the NFL last year in what PFF has is negatively graded run blocks, right? And that's at right tackle. He's really never played left tackle where it's reported that the Chiefs want him to play. I think that this is one of those signings where it's kind of like when the team fires a head coach and they get the guy who's the exact opposite to be their next coach. Orlando Brown had like the worst athleticism score in our database. He has, he's kind of like a technician. He's but he's not. He's kind of like he's the unathletic average left tackle. And the Chiefs are like, well, we're going to go for broke with this super athletic, like young guy who has not produced yet to replace him. And I feel like at $20 million, that's a steep price to pay when your quarterback protects the offensive line more than the other way around.
It pains me to say what I'm going to say for my most overrated signing because it has nothing to do with the player. But Jimmy Garoppolo to the Raiders makes absolutely no sense to me. And I've been the guy that for a long time has defended Jimmy G. I think he's way better than people give him credit for. He's going to have those 1 or 2 throws over the middle every game where you're going to, basically pull your hair and gasp and like, what is he thinking? What is he doing? Type of situation, those overthrows. But overall, I thought he ran a very efficient offense for the 49ers. He did exactly what was asked of him. I think the Raiders as an organization think that they're way closer to contention than they actually are. And to me, it's a team with several holes, both on the offensive line, defensively, much to be desired there. And by signing Jimmy Garoppolo to this deal, I wonder if it prevents them from drafting a quarterback this year. I hope it doesn't. And if they find a guy that falls to them, they go that route. But there's that possibility where that's no longer on the table for them. And on top of that, it just cements them into like this middling organization where you just don't want to be in that spot. And you look around at the division, you see Kansas City just winning a Super Bowl. Denver's getting better, huge offensive line improvements. They bring in Sean Payton. You have the Chargers who have Justin Herbert. Like, this is the time for the Raiders just to say, we're not good. Like, let's find ourselves some high draft picks in the next couple years. Instead, they go out and they sign Jimmy G to start for them. I don't think that makes a ton of sense. So as much as I love Garoppolo and I defended him over the years, I just have no idea what the Raiders organization is doing. No clue.
It's so weird because like you said, and not only Justin Herbert, but Kellen Moore now, who I think was underrated when he was in Dallas. Like you have Peyton and Russell Wilson. And this is a team that kind of went all in last year just to be a 13-2 underdog to win their own division. And, they were probably better than the record indicated for the first half of the season. And now you're kind of a team that's like got veterans that are kind of at the end of their career. And I don't see it either. It's really, to me, it's a real big misunderstanding of what it takes to win in the AFC.
Yep. Completely agreed. If you are enjoying the video, make sure you smash that like button. Consider subscribing here on Forward Progress. We'll have a ton more content related to free agency and, of course, the NFL draft coming up in late April as well. Ton of betting related stuff leading up to the NFL draft. So make sure you're subscribed and you have notifications on so you do get these videos as soon as we release them. We'll end off today, guys, with our best futures bet as it stands right now. Eric, we'll start with you.
Yeah, as years of being a Chiefs fan, I just relished the opportunity to bet against Derek Carr. And you look at Tampa Bay, the way they are. Atlanta's made some moves. I had an executive in the league text me. He goes, Atlanta waited all these years to get their cap space back so they could sign a guard, a safety, a linebacker, and a backup quarterback. And so, I'm still I think people are out on the Panthers now after the Panthers moved up and very, very richly moved up to get the first overall pick. I think there's a small chance that they trade back and accumulate even more than what they traded for the pick in the first place. But anyway, I like the coaching staff that the Panthers have assembled. I still think that with Brian Burns and guys, J.C. Horn and guys like that on defense, I still think they can be good there. And, depending upon who they take, I think 3-1 is still at Caesars a good bet for them to win that division.
Yeah, me and Suma were talking about this in one of the videos we did last week in terms of we just don't want to bet the Saints, or we don't like the Saints at their current odds there, where they've now moved up to like plus 140 in most spots. And it was like, which of the other teams in the division is live? I think we settled on Atlanta because we thought that the Lamar Jackson to Atlanta hype was real at the time, but that's looking less likely with each passing day. I'm still not convinced that the Saints are far and away the best team in that division. So I like that look. Suma, on your end, what's standing out to you?
It pains me to say, but I think that Miami's odds are a little bit too high after all what they did in the past 7 days. I still think that the offense with Tagovailoa will be kind of limited next year, and I don't think we will see like repeatedly that stretch that we saw in the middle of the season when they were really putting up like 35 points against bad defenses. I don't think that this kind of offense is really that's sustainable, and they look very poorly against the better teams in the league. But I still think that having Vic Fangio and so many good players on defense might give them a decent floor on defense, even though that's very hard to say because defense is not very predictive. And even if the Dolphins are going to have a very good defense on paper, they might end up being just the 17th defense in the league. But I think that they have like a decent fat tail to the upside because that offense can click every time, and the defense with one of the best defensive coordinators in the game also has some upside to make some plays late in the season. So right now, Dolphins in that 16-1 AFC odds range. I like that quite a bit. A team like the Jets, for example, I think that price is a gun already. So right now, Dolphins standing out.
Yeah, Caesar Sportsbook 16-1 right now. You can find some 15-1s. Most of the market have 14-1, but they are priced as the 8th best team in the AFC. And I agree with Suma. I think that they're worth a look, especially to win the AFC. For me, I'm going to go to the NFC West. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks at 5-1 to win the NFC West. I wasn't in love with the Geno signing because it's the same as the Jimmy G signing. It kind of cements you into like that middling position. But I think that there's question marks, especially with the Rams, who are priced at plus 375 to win the division. There's no way the Rams should be priced better than the Seahawks, in my opinion. Seahawks have a great young core that they drafted last season. The Rams are pretty much in cap hell, trading away players that are of value to recoup any sort of draft picks that they can. I don't see how the Rams should be priced better. And I think that there's a possibility that the 49ers fall off next year. I mean, they signed Sam Darnold now. Who knows who the quarterback's going to be? But you potentially get Brock Purdy off a UCL injury. You get Trey Lance, who I haven't been impressed with at all, if he can even play, or Darnold, who's never proven anything as a pro. I think there's tons of question marks in San Francisco, and people just expect that. It's Kyle Shanahan. The offense is going to hum, and it's going to keep humming. At 5-1, I think the Seahawks are a pretty solid bet now that they've solidified the quarterback position. I'm high on Geno. I think he did a lot of good things last year. So that's where I'm going to go. Curious what your guys' thoughts are on the NFC West next year.
Well, you're basically betting against the Niners, right? Because Arizona, I think that one of the next dominoes to fall in the draft is going to be Arizona moving back out of 3. Like, there's really nothing, one player is never going to really help them. And Monty Ossenforth comes from a Patriots regime that love to move back and rebuild that way. Murray's not going to be really ready for the beginning of the year, so it's going to be rough there. And LA, like, they just don't have any players, right? And their best player now, I mean, Cooper Kupp's their best player, but their quarterback, the most valuable player, is a ticking time bomb health wise, I would say. So, you're basically just betting on McVay there if you like the Rams, and that's, I think, dubious if they don't have a defense or a supporting cast. So you're basically betting against the Niners, and the Niners have shown fragility over the past decade. They've either lost 10 or more games or made the NFC Championship game every single season except for 2014 since 2011. So it really has been a boom or bust there, and if you're getting those kind of odds, then that seems reasonable to me.
Suma, I know you've really been high on the 49ers for years. Any thoughts on them going into next year?
I echo a lot of what Erica said. I mean, I can already imagine the training camp hype around Sam Darnold, like tossing deep bombs against the B defense of the 49ers and everyone getting hyped up again. Oh, every quarterback is going to work in Shanahan's system. But yeah, I mean, Trey Lance, even if he's ready to play, he will likely have a step backwards in terms of his ability to run the ball next year, which I think will take some of the elements away of a potential dual threat Trey Lance offense. Brock Purdy maybe coming off UCL, Sam Darnold. I think there's a clear path for the Niners to not be good next year.
All right, so there you have it. Eric's going with the Carolina Panthers plus 300 to win the NFC South. That's available at Caesar Sportsbook. Suma is going with the Miami Dolphins to win the AFC 16-1 at Caesar Sportsbook. I'm taking the Seahawks plus 500, NFC West. That's at Bet365. I'd also take the plus 450s that are on the board at all of the Kambi books, Bet Rivers, and so on and so forth. Thank you for tuning into Forward Progress. Once again, if you do enjoy the content, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll have a lot more this week. For myself, for Eric Eager, for Fabian Sommer, we'll catch everyone next time. Peace.